players jostle for position, hunting down, trying to get that world's qualification.
They probably want a world title too, to be fair.
I mean, that's step one, man. Yeah. That's step one. Got to walk before you can run. And
exactly.
Of course, slots for the MPL up for grabs for next year, this week, and in future league weekends as well. Thanks for joining us here, Friday night. Corey Baumeister, let's get underway with this match here. I've backed Rei Sato on cycling. I know that, look, there are draws that Rogues can have that just beat anything, but the same goes for cycling. And it's consistency. And look at this, 2 copies of Improbable Alliance. A one-lander is often a risky keep, Corey, but with Rogues, it's a little, with cycling, it's a little less riskier than usual.
A little less risky, I would have to agree as well. And I think Rei is just putting that high of value on these Improbable Alliance, just saying if I can go Alliance into Alliance, and the Plains is probably not the land number 2 that we wanted to see. But I think that is the big thing. If I can cast Alliance into Alliance, it's really hard for a rogue deck that's trying to answer creatures on a 1-for-1 basis to, be able to deal with an army of flyers.
And even without the Improbable Alliance turn 2, you've still got Valiant Rescue, which does demand an answer, and there is no answer forthcoming in Depraz's hand at the moment. That'll change, of course. That Drown in the Loch is going to turn into effectively a Doomblade. Yep. But from this point onwards now, we're going to see both players attempt to get themselves into a more favourable position, right?
This is going to be... Yep. 100%. Sorry to interrupt you there. I was going to say this is going to be a really big cycle here, because I would just assume Rei would want to cycle and try to land that Improbable Alliance. But, getting the Rescuer down is quite good as well. Trying to eat up another Drown in the Loch.
Both players missing their 3rd lands here. That Ruin Crab looking a lot less attractive when you don't have a handful of lands to go with it. Soaring Thought Thief comes across and deals 2 cards. Creeping closer to the threshold here, as we tend to call it. Either 7 or 8 cards, depending on which card you're talking about.
Yeah, and, threshold really aging you there, Riley. That's a flashback there.
What are you talking about? It's just like, you've got to get to 7 cards or 8 cards, depending on what you're talking about here. It's just like it's a threshold you got to reach, right? Like there's no what do you mean?
Oh, the mechanic of threshold when you had 7 cards in your graveyard.
I've never heard of it.
Okay, sure.
I've never heard of it. What are you talking about?
We'll take you to magic school after this, and we'll educate you on this archaic ability, huh?
Now the Drown in the Loch here gets rid of another Valiant Rescuer, so a little bit of deja vu. We're going to see the 3rd Valiant Rescuer played. Yeah, interesting to see Sato is just not interested in cycling away those boons in order to try to find more lands here, Corey.
Yeah, it's interesting because that is the 2 ways that Rei could have played this, where it's just instead of playing Rescuers, just really try to make sure you hit land 3 for Improbable Alliance. But if you just keep jamming these Rescuers, you're forcing Jean-Emmanuel Depraz to have one of these Heartless Acts, to have another Drown in the Loch. And, right now, it looks like Rei has kind of ran him out of these meaningful cards. And without some lands, even these Mystical Disputes and Didn't Say Pleases are a little bit worse. Mystical Dispute hitting Improbable Alliance is a nice plus here.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to see that second Soaring Thought Thief come down anytime soon, because of the importance of keeping up Mystical Dispute against a potential Improbable Alliance here. There's the land. It comes a little too late. If Sato here were to play an Improbable Alliance, there's going to be a snap dispute here to get rid of it, because as you already mentioned, Corey, this card is nightmarish for any Dimir deck to deal with.
Yeah, so tough. Just a constant string of creatures when you're trying to Heartless Act individual creatures is a really tough game plan.
So Boon of the Wishgiver finally cycled away. There's the 4th land. Valiant Rescuer can come in for 3. Or is Sato going to play around potentially a Soaring Thought Thief? A Thieves Guild Enforcer. Let's find out.
Yeah, and here is a kind of a next level play for anyone who wants to pick up one of these decks on Arena. If you don't set any stops in these situations, you go to combat, you can tell when there is not a stop, therefore that Jean-Emmanuel would not have a creature. So if you're really trying to level up your game, think about that, where if my opponent knows I don't have a 1-mana card, they just got in 3 free damage there. So a valuable next level play that a lot of these pros do is kind of go into full control or set some individual stops on phases.
Soaring Thought Thief comes across for 2 more, but Jean-Emmanuel Depraz cannot find a 3rd land for love nor money here, and does have a Mystical Dispute, however, can keep up a Mystical Dispute for the 2nd Improbable Alliance. And honestly, Jean-Emmanuel Depraz is the sort of player who at this point would have sniffed it out. Probably. You've got an opponent who kept a what probably looked like a 2-lander, hasn't played a lot of business, hasn't played any other lands. It means that their hand's looking really good. So Jean-Emmanuel Depraz here has probably sniffed out this Improbable Alliance, but he's going to let it resolve here.
Wow. Interesting. I mean, at this point, I guess you are just really focusing on playing Soaring Thought Thief, I guess, because if you want to Heartless Act the Rescuer, you would do it with the Improbable Alliance on the stack. But, I mean, this seems really scary for Jean-Emmanuel right now, having that enchantment in play and a Rescuer cranking out a bunch of creatures.
No, excuse me, I've made a mistake. It's actually not a Mystical Dispute. It's an of one mind.
Okay, I totally thought it was Mystical Dispute as well. That converted mana cost.
The two and the blue managed to bamboozle me a little bit. There is the Mystical Dispute, a day late and $1 short here. So the Improbable Alliance goes unanswered, and instead it's Double Soaring Thought Thief, the play here for Jean-Emmanuel Depraz, coming across for 3. But again, these fairies are just going to get in the way every single time, man. Just a card that can consistently produce 1/1 blockers to get in the way, gunk up the board, prevent your opponent from really getting any traction, any damage on you. And then after a while, it'll start making enough so you can start attacking back.
100%. And these ground creatures are going to do exactly that next turn.
Right point.
And here's the one thing, the big difference between Valiant Rescuer and Improbable Alliance here, it just takes that one cycle on your opponent's turn to get a 1/1 ground creature. But to be able to get another flyer on your opponent's turn, you do have to cycle twice to draw that second card. So we're only seeing the 1 ground creature here. And these Soaring Thought Thieves are adding up already. Rei's already at 11. So, you know, if Jean-Emmanuel can actually find some land and really get something going here, it still could be Jean-Emmanuel's game, but he needs to find land 3. This is really giving me flashbacks of Sperling's game 2 against Ely Cassis last round.
Wow, and the lands are forthcoming for Rei now, who's drawn, 7 of them? Jeez, I don't think he wants that many. In come the 1/1s. And there's a Startling Development here as well, which will proc... well, actually nothing now, because, again, there's no way to draw a second card unless another Cycler is forthcoming off the top of the deck here.
Exactly.
However, the Startling Development can also be used as a weird giant growth, and we actually might see Rei Sato use the secret mode on Startling Development, turn his fairy into a 4/4, and try to block one of these Soaring Thought Thieves. Now, that's very dangerous. It runs into removal, counterspells, what have you, but it is an option that's at his disposal here, Corey.
That would be pretty startling for me if he did cast that, though.
That would be a Startling Development?
I would be startled. You know, this early in the afternoon, I don't know if I'm ready to be that startled while we're watching some Magic.
Okay, all right, well... Let's see if he's going to go for it here. I think we're going to see the block in any case because, again, these fairies are pretty disposable.
Yep.
But will there be the old blue giant growth, the +3/+3?
Oh, here we go.
Are we going to see a Startling Development? Oh, Corey, mate, get startled, dude.
I am startled. This time we do see a Mystical Dispute here, though. So I think this is going to be a nice one. And looking at Rei's deck... For the main deck, the only real counter spells I see are just the Disdainful Strokes. So Jean-Emmanuel will know that this will work if he decides to Mystical Dispute this.
Yeah, Disdainful Stroke, a pretty bad card against the Rogues deck for the most part. Can snipe an into the story with it, of course, but apart from that, it's not really doing a whole lot of work.
Yeah. But I mean, that is, you know, one of the major cards, so it's definitely not dead, you know, but not exactly what you want as a complete versatile card. Something like Mystical Dispute that can counter Soaring Thought Thief on turn 2, and then also nab an Into the Story, a much better counter spell. And Rei Sato does have access to 2 of those post board.
So there is that Startling Development getting the job done. Corey, can we just check in with you now, mate? What is your startled situation? Are you indeed startled?
I actually was startled. All jokes aside, I was kind of startled that Divination of One Mind here at full retail value was a higher equity than getting rid of this fairy and leaving another 3/3. So it's definitely close. But Jean-Emmanuel just saying, I need lands. There's enough of this. I'll be able to get Soaring Thought Thief back eventually as long as I can keep the pressure up. But it was a real cost.
All right, more lands forthcoming now of One Mind. Finally given Jean-Emmanuel the business and finding 3 lands in hand here now. So looking a little bit better. Ruin Crab we could see here.
Yeah, I did see like 24 cards or so in Rei's library. The thing about playing against Rogues is not only are you getting milled pretty aggressively with these creatures, but you're also drawing about 1,000 cards a turn. So you get milled pretty quickly by that combination of cycling and the Rogues attacking.
double-edged sword to be sure, because of course not only do you run the risk of being milled out, but you also juice up those Zenith Flares enormously here. So it does cut both ways. Right now, have a Ruin Crab plus Fabled Passage would be another 6 cards. And again, there's the attack from the Soaring Thought Thief to continue to burn away at Sato's library. Let's see what happens here. Jean-Emmanuel taking his time with this decision.
So I think this is the big call. Jean-Emmanuel just wants to think like, okay, can I beat a Zenith Flare right now? Yes, with the counter spells, but my hand is so medium right now. Do I just have to go for Into the Story, hope you don't have it, or try to get a Rune Crab going? It looks like Jean-Emmanuel is going with a little combination of this plan, saying, I'm going to hold up, not play Rune Crab, and if you don't do anything too scary, or let's say you activate that Improbable Alliance, which Rei has been pretty aggressive to do so far, then let's go. We're going to jam this Into the Story and try to refuel his hand.
Go for blood, procs the Improbable Alliance, and geez, this is just stinker after stinker for poor old Rei Sato, who finds another land. It's really not going too well for him at the moment. So he's going to pass. He's got that the looting activation, the draw a card, discard a card ability of the Improbable Alliance, waiting ready to go. Here's an attack. We'll see a block from Depraz, and 4 damage going to come across, knock the Frenchman down to 9.
And here, this is pretty awkward. If Jean-Emmanuel had perfect information, he's just thrilled. It's just, I will cast this Into the Story, but the game could easily just be done if you are wrong on this, you know? And right now, Jean-Emmanuel is just weighing the pros and cons. Like, can I win this game if I just say draw, go, and make sure I'm always prepared for a Zenith Flare for like 16 or 17 right now? And I would think eventually he's going to come to the conclusion that I'm not going to beat this Improbable Alliance. I have to do something.
Yep.
And with missing that many land drops, this is about the turn, what we see turn like 7 or 8 with how many land drops Rei has made, where you should be able to Into the Story with a counterspell backup. But with missing all these lands, Jean-Emmanuel is just like, let's go for it.
He's going to go for it, and he's probably going to get blown out as well by this Disdainful Stroke. So Depraz not having a great time coming or going.
Yeah.
Whether it was the Zenith Flare or a Disdainful Stroke there, he really wasn't going to have a good time. So double Ruin Crab, however. We're going to shift gears here. And with a bit of luck, I mean, maybe there's already a flare or 2 in the bin. Maybe we'll mill over a couple more with these Ruin Crabs here. I think that's honestly Depraz's best way out here, is to just mill Sato out. He's not going to be able to get through these blockers.
I totally agree. And here is one piece of really accurate information that you can depict from what happened at the end of that last turn. Jean-Emmanuel Depraz knows there is no Zenith Flare in hand right now. There cannot be, or the game would have just ended. The game
just would have been over, exactly.
So right now, you do get to just piece together what's in his hand by what you mill. And if you hit Zenith Flare number 4, Jean-Emmanuel's play gets to drastically change. Like, put Luris into your hand, you know, throw around your mana all willy-nilly and just kind of have a good time when you don't have to worry about it.
The bad news is 3 copies of Zenith Flare still in Rei Sato's 16-card deck at the moment. So
how unlucky! How unlucky!
Here's another land, and nope. Now it's 3 and 13.
Okay.
Now it's 3 and 13, and
2 and 10. 20% chance of drawing one of these Zenith Flares.
Of peeling a Zenith Flare that is lethal almost 3 times over here.
And the only defense that Jean-Emmanuel has is the Mystical Dispute. This is another big one. Mill.
Let's go. 2 more cards. Are we going to find the second or third, I should say, Zenith Flare here? Soaring Thought Thief coming across. This Mystical Dispute, not enough to defend Depraz from a Zenith Flare if one's forthcoming.
Everyone doesn't the edge of your seat.
Doesn't attack. Rogan Chime instead. And there's a Startling Development. Going to cycle that one as well. Proc the Improbable Alliance, but the Zenith Flare off the top should seal the deal here. We're going to see Ironcrag Pyromancer? Surely not.
Not if they play Pyromancer first.
Surely not. Oh, no, Rei Sato. No. Don't do it to us, mate. Don't do it to us. That is 3 mana that you need to pay for Mystical Dispute here, my friend.
So here's the thing. Rei is playing around Drown in the Law or Mystical Dispute. And if you want to play around Drown in the Law, you play Pyromancer first, because it's still a very threatening card. You know, but if you want to play around Mystical Dispute, you just say Zenith Flare you right now before you can untap and have Didn't Say Please available. So whatever Rei does, it's not wrong, in quotation, no matter what. It's contextually playing around different cards. And we're just going to see what direction Rei picks here.
I guess it's easy for us to sit here because we have access to both players' hands and go, oh, you should obviously do this. But no, you make a good point, Corey. In some worlds, Ironcrag Pyromancer is the better card to play in this situation because it deals with a greater percentage of potential outcomes here. Now, a lot of players are going to look at this and be like, wow, Rei obviously just had the win and didn't take it. But instead, Ironcrag Pyromancer is setting him up to win in a different fashion. And Depraz here with a really, really tough call. Does he get rid of the Pyromancer, which can kill him in 2 triggers? I mean, this probably kills Depraz next turn, right?
Yeah, so here's the thing. If I'm looking at the list, we already saw 1 Mystical Dispute cast from Jean-Emmanuel Depraz. So right now, Rei is like, I am not going to play around the one of. Because right now there's Disdainful Stroke. There's 4 Drown on the Lock. That's 5 outs. So mathematically it would be incorrect to do it in the other order that would give him the win immediately. Right. And Jean-Emmanuel, if he goes for this Mystical Dispute on the Pyromancer, it's going to be wrong. Or he's going to be dead immediately. So this is a really, really weird scenario of unfortunate events.
Rei Sato has about 10 cards left in the library here. Ruin Crab plus Soaring Thought Thief represents 8, plus a draw step takes him down to 1. So we're going to see Mystical Dispute, though, on the Ironcrag Pyromancer. Depraz reckons that he can't beat this card, but instead he loses to the Zenith Flare. Rei Sato there played an absolute blinder and gets a well-deserved win. Unfortunately, Depraz, I mean, he did his best. He was stuck on 2 lands for, about 1,000 years here. But ultimately, Sato was able to find the tools that he needed. And, I like the way that both of those blokes played that game. I think it was really effective. Both of them played, the best Magic that they could. But at the end of the day, the chips fell the way of Rei Sato. And game number 1 goes his way, Corey.
So I'm actually interested on why we dispute the Pyromancer at all. Because even if you pay 3, you still have 2 mana left over, and you can cycle any of your cards anyways. So I actually don't understand that dispute at all. Maybe I'm missing something here, but it seems like you have the mana to cycle and deal 3 damage if you do indeed have a cycler. And if you don't have a cycler and you have a Zenith Flare, then dispute is definitely, you should save it for that. Because then if you just top deck Fabled Passage next turn, the game is over. So
maybe the use of Mystical Dispute there, perhaps not the best use it could have been put to, Corey.
Yeah, that's what I would assume. But I mean, I really liked Rei's play of playing the Pyromancer first, even though with perfect information that we all have, it would have been a little bit, it was correct for Rei with only playing around 1 card instead of playing around the other 5. The Drawn on the Locks and the Disdainful Stroke. So a really interesting end to the game there.
Yes, indeed. We're going to move on and get underway with game number 2 now. I can tell you that we've got Jean-Emmanuel Depraz bringing in another Mystical Dispute, another Negate, and taking out Didn't Say Please and Heartless Act. So very, very light touch with the sideboards here.
Yeah.
On the other side of things, Rei Sato brought in 2 Mystical Disputes, a Negate, and 2 Shredded Sails. Whereas he's taken out 2 copies of Disdainful Stroke, as you might expect, and 3 Frostveil Ambush.
The giant growth, huh? There we go.
Frostveil Ambush is... No, that's Startling Development.
That's right. Interesting. Yeah, you can tell that Jean-Emmanuel does not mind this matchup with that many minimal changes, or maybe wasn't really prepared for the matchup in general. That's what that little amount of sideboarding says to me.
Frostveil Ambush, of course, the card that taps 2 creatures and they're done untap for 5 mana.
Gotcha.
Just one of the cyclers. Now, this does have an impact, though, Corey, on the consistency of the deck. You've taken out 3 of your 1 mana cyclers in exchange for 2 mana cyclers instead, or does Shredded Sails cycle for 1, actually? Shredded
Sails cycles for 2, I believe. Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but yeah.
It does cycle for 2, yeah. It's a little... the power level on the actual casting of that card is a little higher, I would have thought. It's a little too good, I think, if you just cycle it for 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that card is already just a good versatile card to play in a non-cycling based deck.
I guess I probably shouldn't say the power level. Yeah, it is versatility that Shredded Sails brings rather than power level. Yep, certainly.
Huge draw for Jean-Emmanuel there without land 3, and you're just holding on to Disdainful Stroke, which does not have text until Zenith Flare, comes around. So it doesn't have text till like turn 7 or 8. That would have been backbreaking here. So getting that of 1 mind is very big.
Here's another Valiant Rescuer. We saw this one cast 3 times in game number 1. It's going to come down here for the Japanese MPL player Rei Sato as well. In game number 2, can cycle away Startling Development or indeed Granite Stinger. Probably the development here, as often you want to cast the Stinger. Interesting to see the healer has taken a seat on the bench now in favour of that Pyromancer, I think, Corey.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the healer was probably the worst creature to actually play. You just want to get people dead. Zenith Flare gains you enough life that it doesn't really matter if you're just gaining incidental life each turn. I mean, if you play against Mono Red Burn, of course, that's going to be a well, actually moment. But as it stands, you just would rather be killing your opponent.
Yeah, Corey, just a toxic DPS player. No respect for his healers. He's yelling at the tanks. He's berating the healers for not keeping him alive. Doesn't know where the med kits are all over the map.
Exactly.
You hate to see it.
Exactly.
The bane of support players everywhere, Corey Baumeister. In comes the Thieves Guild Enforcer.
And the bus driver himself, Riley
Just
Knight.
learn the map, dude. If you're going to play DPS, just learn the map, all right? I'm not pocketing you, all right? I got so many teammates to keep alive. I'm not going to sit just behind you and keep you alive, or you miss all of your shots, dude. All right, come on. In comes the Enforcer for 1. Valiant Rescue. Not interested in blocking, and we're going to see the Granite Stinger cycled away. So another startling development here, Corey.
I'm just startled again. Yeah, and there's another huge draw right now. Improbable Alliance was countered right away with that Thieves Guild Enforcer in a Drown in the Law. But now with Improbable Alliance, if Rei Sato does decide to go for it and then gets a cycler going, this game is already going to be so tough. We can get a Soaring Thought Thief and then into the story and try to restock from there. But we got to find something good. And that's essentially taking 2 turns off while Rei Sato is just going to be generating 2 tokens a turn, maybe even 3 or 4 if we do some cycling on our opponent's turn. So right now, this is definitely advantage Rei.
So Improbable Alliance makes a 1-1, as indeed does Valiant Rescuer. I don't think we'll see the Rescuer attack, and even the other 1-1 not getting in here. That's very wise decision indeed, given the Soaring Thought Thief that was in hand.
Absolutely. It was a nod to Thieves Guild Enforcer as well, being able to just cleanly answer them. So you really don't want to be getting in there from the cycling side until you can really go wide.
So into the story, one of the biggest cards in the Rogues deck. One of the reasons the Rogues deck is able to get away with what it does, trade off 1 for 1 for 1. That's all it's just doing the entire game with counter spells, removal spells, what have you. It's just looking to play a 1 for 1 game. And then it will reload with this 4-mana draw 4 during your end step into the story, an innocuous card for quite a while until the Rogues deck came along and really unlocked its potential.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, low-key, one of the strongest cards in Standard right now. It's not as flashy as Embercleave. It's not as flashy as the Great Henge, but it wins games just the same. Back in my day, Mr. Riley Knight.
Here we go.
I used to draw 4 cards on my main phase, and I used to pay 5, and I called it Tidings, and I was happy about it.
And you liked it.
And I liked it, yes. Yeah. And then I'd walk uphill both ways to my card store in the snow to play that magic card at Sorcery Speed.
I'm just looking at all the cards that draw 4 cards. There's one called Cruel Bargain. Black, draw 4 cards, lose half your life. Quite a cruel bargain there.
That is a cruel bargain.
Yes, indeed. Wow. We're going to see an attack in the air now with the 1-1. With Jean-Emmanuel Depraz tapped out, there's no danger of this being chomped up. One of the most famous draw 4 cards, I would say, particularly in Pro Tour history, is definitely Goblin Law.
Oh, yes. Yes, that is the discard 2 and then draw 4, right?
Draw 4, discard 3 at random. And that was a huge part of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan, where we saw Hollow One in Modern burst onto the scene. A massive tournament that was, and Goblin Law really powering the power behind that deck.
The funniest story I remember from that Pro Tour is what it was Ken Yukihiro who made the top 8.
Yeah.
And in his interview is like, so why did you play this really cool deck? And he's just like, I saw it at a Magic Online deck dump that went 4-0 in a Magic tournament and copied the exact 75. Like that was the pro breakdown from Ken, and it was hilarious.
Just net decking.
Just
net
straight
decking
net
of the
deck,
highest order.
straight to the top 8 of a huge event.
Top 8ing a Pro Tour, no worries at all. Right now, things looking pretty good for Sato. Here we see a Drown Lock, however, taking out that 0-4. Still plenty of cards in hand for Depraz, and he is ready for a Zenith Flare here with Disdainful Stroke. But a second copy of Improbable Alliance. No answer for that as it stands right now. And Sato is really pushing forward with the game plan that he considered probably to be his plan A here against this Rogues archetype.
Make tokens, repeat. And look at this. If we wanted to Valiant Rescuer as well, we could be making 4 tokens. Takes the conservative route and just decides to cycle, maybe trying to cycle twice on Jean-Emmanuel's turn, which does net a few more tokens anyways.
All right, 2 more fairy tokens here. And we were talking before about the fact that, you know, these Improbable Alliances, they kind of play both halves of the court, don't they? They can play the offense once you need them to, but before that, they just sit there and soak up damage. They just make fairies, block, 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 and then eventually you can turn the corner once you've got a couple of them, once you've got enough cyclers, and all of a sudden your opponent's staring down the barrel of a huge fairy army. And it's really impressive the way that this Improbable Alliance, you know, it's not new. It's not new technology. It was in the card pool for a long time, but people were just very slow to adopt it. I remember when the cycling deck first broke, people were playing blue. They then cut the blue, and now we've sort of come full circle right back to it.
Yeah, right away when that card came out, it was really improbable that people would play it, but I think they have to switch the name. It's Probable Alliance at this point. It's just in its stock at this point.
Likely Alliance.
Likely Alliance. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So a couple of blocks here. Thieves Guild Enforcer going to chomp up one of the 1/1s and a trade with the Valiant Rescuer as well. I think Depraz recognizing that these tokens are just becoming a little too much for him to bear. So he's going to trade off one of his creatures for the Rescuer. But bad news for him. There's a second one waiting in the wings if Rei wants to play that. I think instead what we're going to see here is Ralgren Triome held onto and potentially cycled at some point, maybe next turn, maybe this turn.
That, for me, that feels like that might have been a little bit premature of an all-in attack. If there was a Thieves Guild Enforcer or a Soaring Thought Thief, losing 2 of the tokens to get in just 2 damage is that borderline, right? Like, it's really close. When your opponent's at like 9 or something, you jam. But when we're still at 17, I think it is very close to waiting 1 more turn and keeping all your creatures around, keeping your Valiant Rescuer around. Because now if we cycle from Rei, we don't even get 1 token here unless we cycle Valiant Rescuer and we find a 1-mana cycler. So quite possibly a little too aggressive on that attack.
Plenty of lands in hand for Depraz, but he'll be looking for some more business. Got that into the story and the Disdainful Stroke. It's a useful piece of technology for him to hold on to in the face of potential Zenith Flare.
Yeah, and something we very well might see if there is indeed a cycle of this Ragrum Triome at the end step, which I kind of expect. It could just be a time to jam this into the story, but that comes with a cost. Now that into the story and Disdainful Stroke, you can't cast both by playing that tap land. So I think Jean-Emmanuel has different plans because that would be a little too risky. If there's a Zenith Flare, I almost assuredly, we can't see the numbers, but it's probably game. With how much milling has occurred already.
Yeah, you'd think so. With 2 copies of Ruin Crab out, it'd be very difficult for it not to be the case. Lura's put in the hand here. Ralgren Triome getting ready to be cycled away. There it is. And even though this won't proc the Alliance, still useful to continue to churn through the deck. Here's a way to proc the Alliance. Plenty of cycling cards in hand. We're going to see Flourishing Fox take the field as well. Potentially. Nope. Okay. Thinks better of it. Cycling it away. Yeah, look, I'd be surprised to see the Fox at this stage. The Thieves Guild Enforcer has Death Touch. It's just not really the sort of card you want in this situation.
Agreed. Yep. That is a turn 1 play, or possibly turn 2 if you're on the play outside of that. That fits into the mold of every other cycler that just you put it into your graveyard and draw a card.
So 4 fairies coming across now for 4 damage in the air. Ironcrag Pyromancer, a probable play here for Rei. And now with the Valiant Rescue, with the Startling development, he's in a good position to start leveraging this the damage off of this Pyromancer in the coming turns.
Yep, this is definitely getting up there. And with this many flyers, I think we're going to see Depraz put a high equity on getting one of these, let's say, Soaring Thought Thieves back as a blocker to just kind of start, you know, lowering the impact of these fairies, and then still being able to maybe attack with Lurrus and get some lifelink going to give Jean-Emmanuel Depraz enough time to win the game with these Room Crabs. I don't think this is a game or even a matchup where Jean-Emmanuel really tries to get your opponent's life total to 0. This is a decking matchup because Rei Sato already does so much of the work for him.
So here's Lurrus. This was put into the hand last turn, and now it's getting ready to do some more work here. Question is, what do you want back? Soaring Thought Thief, Merfolk Wind Robber, Thieves Guild Enforcer. The Wind Robber and the Lurrus, a very nice little combination there, especially when the board's under control. You can just effectively pay a blue mana to draw a card, not to mention mill your opponent a little bit with Thieves Guild Enforcer here. So the Merfolk Wind Robber, an innocuous card, but we see it really doing its best work alongside Lurrus here, Corey.
It really is just so good with Lurrus. Just being able to draw 2 cards a turn, every blue mage's dream.
Jeez, did you see that? Oh my goodness. Wow, that is 3 Zenith Flares off the top. And if there's already one in the graveyard, that is big trouble for Sato. Wow. So what happened there? We saw one of them milled over. Then the Merfolk Wind Robber, after that, was joined by a Ruin Crab. And that milled 3 copies of Zenith Flare in a row. And Rei Sato, I mean, so unfortunate for him that key card now, 3 copies of it in his bin.
Yeah, that was wild. And you saw Rei kind of, jump up in his seat and then say, okay, before this other crab trigger goes off in the nightmare scenario of you getting all 4 of them, I better cycle now. Yeah, that is really brutal when you lose all those cards to decking.
Yeah, it doesn't find it, however. And I mean, now, geez, the numbers are really starting to add up between the Enforcer and the double Ruin Crab here, not to mention the Wind Robber that can continue to buy stuff back here. Only 9 cards left in the library. Depraz might pull this one out of the bag.
Yeah, yep. There's still one in the deck, but that Disdainful Stroke does check it. Yeah. But Jean-Emmanuel doesn't know that, because right now Disdainful Stroke does not have 3 mana available to pay for, let's say, a Mystical Dispute if Rei were to have brought that in.
So 8 cards left in library here. The other option is just sort of trying to brute force your way through with all of this damage. That's 8 damage in the air, plus a Startling Development. Wait, is that lethal?
3, 5,
that's 11
6,
damage,
7.
including the one that gets blocked.
It's +3/+3.
It's just make something a 4/4, so effectively, it's a giant growth on these fairies.
Yeah, that looks like Xaxes to me, as long as Rei does not attack with those 1/1 tokens.
That's right, because if the Lurrus blocks, then it'll gain 3 life, and that's not what you want. So we could see, there's the Zenith Flare. There's the final Zenith Flare. So Rei's got a couple of different paths to victory, and he can actually afford to pay for all of them here.
Yeah, look at this. So right now what Rei can do is present lethal in 2 different ways with Startling Develop and Zenith Flare. So that puts Jean-Emmanuel to the test of having to have 2 things. It can be a lot of 2 things. It can be a Heartless Act and a Stroke. It can be, a Soaring Thought Thief and Drown in the Log. There's a lot of combinations, but at this point, Rei's dead next turn to milling. So you just have to go for it.
You just got to go for it. And that's what's going to happen here. And a truly Startling Development, as we see this card hard cast for 2 games in a row by the look of things. Yeah. This is lethal damage if the Startling Development targets one of those unblocked fairies. And we know that Depraz doesn't have an answer. There are so many that he could have, of course, as you say, Heartless Act, Drown in the Lock, so many of them.
And I guess Rei is considering maybe trying to play Pyromancer and cycle for damage there.
I mean, that also works, right?
No, this is only 10, right? Because if you make it a 4/4, yeah, this is only 10. One of them becomes
so
a 4/4.
Only puts them to 1, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, this and we do have the draw spell as well. So no, I think this actually is Jean-Emmanuel.
So it comes across here, puts Sato down to 4. Yeah, didn't have enough mana to both do that and the Pyromancer here. Yeah, a little confusing. The Startling Development it makes it a 4/4, but that of course only gives +3/+3, so it would be 3 extra damage. Yeah.
So now what we got is Ironcrag Pyromancer, cycle this turn and put Jean-Emmanuel to 1. And then if we get another 1-mana cycler, you present lethal on Jean-Emmanuel's turn. And then otherwise it's going to be really close to just for sure milled out from Rei. I think we saw like 6 or 7 cards left. But the one thing that does say is you can at least try to Zenith Flare during your own upkeep, which gives you another shot. We know that's not going to work, but these are the lines that Rei has to go for. So it's either find a second 1-mana cycler, or cycle into a land, play it, and then cycle the other 1-mana cycler into another cycler. Oh,
Oh, wait, no, the Stinger
yeah.
also deal an extra point of damage, right?
Oh, that's huge. Yep.
The Stinger deals an extra point of damage once the Startling Development is cycled as well. So that takes it to a total of 4 damage.
Right, with the Galaxy Brain.
Yep, with the bolt from the Pyromancer plus the ping from the Stinger here. Ray just trying to figure out, is there anything that can go wrong for me?
And I guess it can be Psych. No, I mean, you need a removal spell for Pyromancer on the stack.
And you can see Ray kind of trying to protect it with his cursor there, warding off any evil magic. And instead now 3 damage comes across the lightning bolt from Ironcrag Pyromancer. And Rei Sato playing an absolute blinder here.
Yeah.
Poor old Depraz, he was sitting on that Disdainful Stroke his entire game, but it wasn't enough. Going to cycle away the Zagoth Triumph to see what could have been. But 3 damage is going to resolve off of that Pyromancer trigger. What an incredible game of Magic we saw Rei Sato win there.
What a great match, and straight masterly played by Rei Sato there to be able to put himself in a position to win both of those games where realistically Jean-Emmanuel Depraz had the answers for these specific things, and Rei had to play very tightly to put himself in a position where maybe Mystical Dispute targeted the wrong thing or something like that. So great work, great play.
Yeah, he really didn't do, and played an absolute blinder there. So well done, Rei Sato. And just showing that the fact that this cycling deck is able to attack on many different axes. As we said heading into this game, both decks are able to sort of enact a plan B, plan A, plan B, all the way through to plan F by the end of things with Ironcrag Pyromancer in the hands of the cycling player. But well done indeed to Rei Sato. All right, up next, my friends, we are going to... I'm just waiting for words as to what's happening next. We are going to move over to our Rivals League here. But before this, we're going to take a break. And on the other side of it, Riku Kumagai and Thoralf Severin will be playing for your viewing pleasure. Stick around, everyone. We'll see you back here live for more Magic at the League Weekend Strixhaven. Welcome back to coverage of the Strixhaven League weekend. Riley and I joined by Corey Baumeister. We're going to head down to the feature match area for our next matchup here. Riku Kumagai playing off against Thoralf Severin, of course, the mythic champion from the Rivals League and a good friend of mine as well. Yes, indeed. So let's see how these two players go and get a sense of what we're going to be looking at now. As soon as we've got stuff ready, we're going to head down there and see how this one pans out. We've got Riku Kumagai with Sultai Ultimatum, one of the best decks, if not the best deck in Standard here, Corey. A very, very powerful list. We've seen this one 1,000 times. Don't need to talk about it too much. Let's have a look at what Toffel is working with here as well before we get underway with our coverage of their match. Gruul Adventures. This is a version of the Teamer list, really, that, well, I don't actually feel comfortable talking about it like that. It's an aggressive mid-range deck that rather than playing the Adventures package in order to pull a long way ahead and go big as the Teamer Adventures deck does, it instead is a lot lower to the ground, a lot more aggressive. You see Questing Beast, you see Embercleave. All right, that's that out of the way. Let's have a look at the feature match area now, get underway with these two players. We've seen both of these decks on camera already, Corey, and now we get to see them go up against each other head-to-head in the hands of Riku Kumagai and Thoralf Severin.
Yeah, so this matchup is really interesting because Gruul Adventures was kind of dominant until we got Keldheim, where Valky came out, where Ulrun's Epiphany came out. And to be honest, Sultai Ultimatum really pushed Gruul Adventures out of the way because you're able to kill all these creatures. You don't even care about Edgewell Innkeeper drawing you a card off Bone Crusher Giant or whatever, just because you just Heartless Act the Lovestruck Beast, then you Binding the Old Gods, the next big creature, and all of a sudden you cast Ultimatum, and it doesn't matter what Gruul's really doing. So I would expect that the metagame has kind of gone full circle, where Reed Duke, and Gabriel Nassif and all them played Gruul in MPL expecting not much Sultai because people have figured out how to beat Sultai with Rogues and other reactive decks like that. So this is the Gruul metagame. They were hoping to not play Sultai with that expectation of thinking that people aren't going to play it much because there's going to be so much Rogue and stuff like that. But, you know, still a winnable matchup, but it is a little tricky.
Toffel here keeping a hand of double Lovestruck Beast and a single Embercleave here. And the good thing about these adventure cards is they unlock a lot more mana, a lot more different turns here.
Yep.
And allow you to make sure that you are, playing to the board in an effective fashion. I'm going to see another Heart's Desire here from the Lovestruck Beast. The 2 5/5s waiting in the wings, and a point of damage comes across as well.
Yeah, great start so far. Definitely a great start so far. Heart's Desire into Heart's Desire, into Lovestruck Beast, into Lovestruck Beast. Demands answers.
It does indeed. And with another red source, this Embercleave can come down as early as turn 4 as well. You can see Toffel there singing away. He is the sort of bloke who, I can tell you this, he'll walk down the street happily singing a song to himself at the top of his lungs. He does love his music, and he'll be getting in the zone as a result of that. And there is that second red source.
I'm the same way. You gotta just enjoy life, right? Belt it from the rooftops.
Embercleave on Lovestruck Beast is just bonkers. It's so much damage. This is attack for 14 next turn.
Yep, and I think we're going to see Binding the Old Gods on Lovestruck Beast, kind of what I was describing in the intro of this match. You just got to deal with that big creature. Either we don't see Great Henge, but it's an Embercleave. You got to stop those huge Embercleave plays, and then follow it up with Elder Gargaroth. Elder Gargaroth is great, but Lovestruck Beast wearing a sword of Embercleave there, it's not a good block. So I'm sure we're going to see Riku kind of playing around that line as much as possible. Really? Okay. Maybe I didn't see a binding. I saw a binding.
I don't think he has a binding to play. No. Otherwise, this would be a juicy target for it. So instead here, we could see an Embercleave turn. Of course, that'll run into the Mystical Dispute. But Toffel may go for it. He's got a second copy of Embercleave as well. Let's see how he plays this one. The other option is to cast the Edgewell Innkeeper and draw a card with the Lovestruck Beast that's still waiting in the wings. Let's see how he goes.
Yeah, so here's the big dilemma here. I'm just looking over the list here. I assume we have some Shadows Verdict. Actually, I'm just not seeing these Shadow Verdicts in Riku's deck. It's just Extinction Events. But still, running Edgewell Innkeeper into Lovestruck Beast just plays right into Extinction Event. So especially with having 2 Embercleaves, I like just jamming here. You're way less vulnerable to that Extinction Event.
And even if this gets countered again, Toffel, yep, little nod at the head there. He probably recognised that and is going to be able to cast an Embercleave next turn, should he choose. Doesn't cast the Edgewall Innkeeper. Probably, as you say, a nod there to a potential extinction event in the future here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I did see we do have 2 Shadows Verdicts main, so even more the reason to play the Embercleave there instead of progressing your board in and kind of leaning into that Wrath effect.
So Elder Gargaroth the play now. But this won't prove too much of an obstacle for the Lovestruck Beast, which will become a 6/6 double strike trampling creature and absolutely obliterate the Gargaroth. Now, Kumagai does get to block with it, which means that, you can draw a card, gain 3 life, make a 3/3 as he chooses.
Yep.
But here, I don't know, Toffel's in a great position to attack once again.
Yeah, so here's the thing. If Thoralf Severin attacks with everything, Gargaroth could block a 1/1, gain 3 life, but that's 12, 13, 10. Now that's still lethal. So right now, Thoralf Severin just has a great attack. Just get him in there. Embercleave will force the action between Elder Gargaroth, and you go from there. I think he's just doing the math, just like I just did. And once you figure that line out, it's a force block here. And this is going to go very well for Thoralf Severin.
Yeah, if Kumagai here doesn't block the Lovestruck Beast, he is just dead because the beast will come across for just a huge stack of damage. And we're going to see, there the block with the on the beast with the Gargaroth, and now a 6/6 trample double striker is what the Embercleave will turn the beast into.
Yeah, and I got a question for you. I remember Mythic Championship Barcelona when Thoralf won. I remember just a fine young gentleman just throwing him in the air. If he wins this league weekend, are you going to travel to Thoralf Severin and lift him out of his chair and hoist your champion? Or
I mean, I'd love to. I understand Germany is in the midst of a lockdown at the moment, so it'd be grossly irresponsible for me to do such a thing, unfortunately. But, I'll do what I can here as we see the Embercleave coming down to punish this block from Kumagai. He probably realized he just can't beat Embercleave no matter what, so he's got to play as though Thoralf doesn't have it. And Toffel wins game number 1 in pretty convincing fashion as well. Just curved out really nicely, kept a hand that didn't look too exciting, Corey. But things came together for our German Rivals League member, and he won a game without really breaking a sweat.
So that last play is a little interesting to me because most of the time when you're playing a creature mirror match, we saw this yesterday with Nassif versus Reed Duke in that Gruul mirror match. There were situations where Nassif didn't play around Embercleave because he indeed could not beat it. But with Sultai Ultimatum, you can beat that card. He could just draw Shadow's Verdict, wrath the board, and, you get to start over. Maybe you top deck Vorinclex, or maybe you top deck Ultimatum from that point, or just spot removal for the next creatures. So it was still unlikely to beat an Embercleave even if it was there, but it wasn't impossible from the Sultai Ultimatum deck. So I think I would block the Lovestruck Beast. It's still bad, of course, but you at least give yourself a shot to draw one of your wrath effects next turn.
Yeah, one of the 4 Wrath effects, or indeed just a removal spell that'll deal with it. So, yeah, surprising turn of events there for Kumagai, who sort of, didn't give himself the best shot to win that game. But, hey, look, we move on to game number 2 here and see how things go between these 2 players. I can tell you the sideboarding details here for both of these. Thoralf Severin brought in a copy of Clothis, 3 Roiling Vortexes, another copy of the Crowan War, and Vivian, Monsters Advocate, and took out Spikefield Hazard, 3 Embercleave, all 3 Embercleaves, that is, and 2 copies of Fire Prophecy, unsurprisingly. We'll come back to that in a second, Corey, as I tell you now that Riku Kumagai brought in 2 Elder Gargaroth and Eliminate, a Heartless Act, and a Coma, and took out Pelucranos, 2 Emergent Ultimatum, Midnight Clock, and a Maze Mind Tome. So looks like Kumagai is trying to play a more controlling role here, but it's interesting. Toffel taking out all 3 copies of Embercleave, I think that's a nod to just how much spot removal there is in Kumagai's deck.
Yeah, makes sense. Just really trying to kill everything and play big things. Elder Gargaroth, I've been messing around late in the standard format with just a Sultai control deck that doesn't even play Ultimatum. And all it is removal and Gargaroths. And it is a good way to attack these aggressive decks. So it looks like Riku Kumagai kind of siding into that mentality as well. So.
Yeah, indeed. Taking out Midnight Clock, Maze Mind Tome, not surprising. They're a little clunkier, a little slow, a little more value-oriented, those cards. Not the sort of thing you want with just how aggressive this Gruul deck can be. I characterized it before as a mid-range deck. I stand by that characterization, but I tell you what, Toffel's making a fool of me right now by attacking for 6 on turn 3, which is just huge. These Brushfire Elementals, it would have only been worse for Kumagai if a fabled passage were involved as well here.
Yeah,
but,
to be fair, it's pretty easy to do, to make a fool of you. Never mind.
Corey, I just really want to congratulate you, mate, because you did give that a red hot go. Well done. You tried. Yeah, you did really try your best. It was.
See, I was gonna burn you there, but then I'm like, you know what? You're my buddy. We're co-commentators.
It's just not in his nature.
I trained myself.
Everyone watching, you just saw Corey Baumeister try to be mean, and you can just see how terrible he is at it.
Maybe we should hang out a little bit more often. Maybe I'll get a little bit better at it.
Yeah, exactly. You'll learn from the master. That's it. Binding the Old God binds away one of these Brushfire elementals, opening up a questing beast as potential play here for Toffle. He's also got that Clothis. Clothis a really hard card for Sultai to deal with in the long term.
So tough. And I like the sequencing from Thoralf, but I want to bring point back to just what Riku did on turn 3 here. Just put Yorion into hand. One of the most powerful things against these aggro decks is just binding the Old Gods into Yorion, blink it. You get 2 lands out of the deal and have a 4/5. And I think that's what we're going to see here from Riku. It's just such an amazingly strong play against these aggressive decks.
So here's the Binding the Old Gods second chapter procking as we move now to Riku's turn. Looks like we've lost his hand for the time being. Apologies for that. Goes and gets a Triome here.
We love a good sweat anyways, right? Now we get to decipher what's going on in Riku's hand.
Here we go. We got him back now. And it looks like he's drawn a lot of the cards that you actually want to fetch with that Ultimatum. Of course, he's taken out a couple of copies of Ultimatum, so it's not a big deal here.
Yeah. And very smartly gets Ketria Triumph so that we can cast Tybalt instead of just Valky. I bet we're going to see a beautiful Bird Serpent here, which we haven't seen near enough of on coverage. There should be Yorion in every single match. Everyone's life would be so much more at peace with such a beautiful Bird Serpent here in their life. Wouldn't you agree?
Skyworm, yes. Skyworm comes down, kills the questing beast with the binding here.
Exactly. And a great play here by Riku Kumagai. Something that maybe isn't as always. Reattaching that Wolf Willow Haven to your untapped land allows him to now have Heartless Act available, which is just such a kind of slap in the face to these aggressive decks to not only just blink a removal spell, have a 4/5 body, and be like, oh yeah, I also ramped on end step, so now I can cast another removal spell. Good luck.
So what's Toffle's plan here? Is it just Clothis and Stomp, try to burn him out? That's not a terrible idea, I don't think.
I think that's a great plan. I think at this point, with Goldspan Dragon just, going right into Yorion, first you just play Clothis and say, try to deal with it. That card is so difficult to deal with out of the Sultai decks. It looks like it really shouldn't be that hard. It's like 2 damage. You're going way over the top. But this is a huge detriment to taking out Emergent Ultimatums. Emergent Ultimatum is one way to beat that card with, casting essentially 2 7-mana spells in 1 turn. You can go over the top of it. But if you're just trying to play a normal Sultai control plan, even Tybalt is not very friendly to enchantments. It is exile target artifact or creature. So there's really no way to deal with these Clothis.
And you saw as well that Toffle brought in extra copies of Roiling Vortex, and this is another card that you look at, you go, well, why is this here again? Like, how much life does Sultai gain? Is that really what you need with this? I mean, sure, they gain some life, it's useful there, but no, it's just that ping in the upkeep every turn. Slowly but surely working away at their life total after some early pressure. They're going to succumb to it before you do. And that's the reason we see Roiling Vortex as an enchantment much more difficult. I mean, it goes down to Binding the Old Gods, sure, but Roiling Vortex is another fascinating piece of technology in this matchup.
And of course, the hidden text on Roiling Vortex, every time you emerge an ultimatum, you just take 10. So it makes that really hard because you're casting it without paying the mana cost. So you just...
But the thing is, that just doesn't, I see what you're saying, it turns them off, but it just doesn't come up because as we see here, Kumagai takes out copies of the ultimatum. They transform into this sort of controlling deck that doesn't have the combo finish anymore. It relies on the Elder Gargaroth. So
this game's over.
It's good, certainly. But here
agreed.
we're going to see Toffle pull together a win of a different kind here. Stomp will put Kumagai down to 4, and then a trigger from the Clothis to eat up a Heartless Act will put Kumagai down to 2. Toffle's on a very healthy 18 here, and now with Goldspan Dragon swinging in for the win. Toffle giving himself a little round of applause there. That Yorion attack a little too much, and as a result, Toffle wins in 2 games, straight sets there.
Impressive.